in here. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It would have been appropriate, of course, to sing Jaya Nilo Prematana today, but I didn't have it together to get that organized, so I apologize. Yeah, we don't have time, though. I should have done that. I should have done that beforehand. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukhaṁ karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim jatkripatamaham vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam. Sri Chaitanya manobhishtam sthapitam yena bhutale swayam rupakada mahyam dadati swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. One of the things I like about giving class here in San Diego is that the devotees don't make an endeavor to sit as far away from the speaker as they can. I've seen that in some places. That happens in Honolulu. One of the things I don't appreciate is having to sit on this thing, but that's life. Oh dear. This isn't right. So today is the Tirobhava or disappearance anniversary of Sri Gadadhara Pandit and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. There are some connections some maybe intimate connections, but we won't even be able. I'll mention one relatively superficial connection that suggests other things a little bit later. And this app used to work differently. Okay, so I've been thinking that when Balaram asked me the other day to speak today, I thought it was very fortunate for me because I worship Gadadhara Pandit every day. Our deities in Honolulu for the last 51 plus years, since May 7th, 1972, are the Panchatattva. They're the central deities. They were installed by Srila Prabhupada then, and Gadadhara Pandit's a very not just a, well, he in a sense, you can say, this is a bit of a cliche, he's a towering personality in our lives. He was extremely important to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were boyhood friends. They were schoolmates. Gadadhara Pandit, Mahaprabhu, Mukunda Dutt, who we'll hear about along the way. And Mahaprabhu and Gadadhara Pandit were practically inseparable since boyhood. There's one instance that we hear, I think from Chaitanya Bhagavat, where Lord Chaitanya, Nimai Pandit, young Nimai Pandit, was lamenting after his, air quotes, conversion to Vaishnavism, where he was lamenting that he couldn't find Krishna anywhere. And Gadadhara Pandit tried to console him. Oh, it's okay. Krishna's right there in your heart. And Mahaprabhu started clawing at his chest, trying to get to Krishna, and Gadadhara Pandit stopped him. And because of this and other incidents, Sachi Devi implored Gadadhara Pandit to try not to let Nimai out of his sight. So they were, I say, practically inseparable, because when there were times when Mahaprabhu, after accepting sannyas especially, would travel, and for various reasons, one of which we'll hear about, Gadadhara Pandit was not able to accompany him. But in Navadvip and in Jagannath Puri, Gadadhara Pandit was always there. Gadadhara Pandit was, in a sense, Lord Chaitanya's Bhagavat teacher. He would have Gadadhara Pandit read Srimad Bhagavatam to him as much as possible. And we hear that Gadadhara Pandit's copy of Srimad Bhagavatam became practically illegible because the letters were smeared, the ink was smeared by the flow of Gadadhara Pandit's tears. And there's a famous picture. There are a couple of things that go around the interwebs that pass as contemporary portraits of Lord Chaitanya. There's one that's authentic, that was actually done. This is a picture where we see Maharaj Prataparudra offering dandavats in front of Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu is sitting, I think, with his hands on his heart, and he's listening to good. Oh, and Haridas Thakur is apparently hanging some laundry or something. An interesting part of the picture. And Gadadhara Gadadhara Pandit is sitting reciting Srimad Bhagavatam to Mahaprabhu, who is just rapt, completely hanging on every syllable. We know that that Gadadhara Pandit, as we'll see here, is Radharani in a sense. He's actually Radharani, but I think one devotee has described him as kind of an empty bag because Mahaprabhu has taken his bhava. Mahaprabhu has kind of like taken his heart, and he had no life other than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I think I need this. I was going to try to finish by 8:15 so that we could have discussion from the other devotees, and we'll see how I do. I'm notoriously bad at organizing time. I'm good at organizing ideas and texts. I'm really terrible at organizing spaces and time. So, if we had a 10-day seminar, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, discussing Gadadhara Pandit, we would still just really get started. We would just be getting started. There's no way in the world we could do justice to the glories of Sri Gadadhara Pandit. And the same goes for Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So I'm just going to pick little spoonfuls here and there to share as my poor attempt to glorify these great personalities. So one place we see Gadadhara Pandit discussed is in chapter 10 of Adi Lila, in verse 15. This is Krishnadas Kaviraj describing the tree of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is a wonderful analogy. So the verse is Barashaka Gadadhara Pandita Gosai Teho Lakshmi Rupa Tamra Samakeho Nai. Gadadhara Pandit, the fourth branch, is described as an incarnation of the pleasure potency of Sri Krishna. No one, therefore, can equal him. Gadadhara Pandit is also described in chapter 7, but I just had to be selective because of time. Srila Prabhupada's purport. In the Gauranga Nodesh Dipika, it is stated, Sri Krishna's pleasure potency, formerly known as Vrindavaneshwari, is now personified in the form of Sri Gadadhara Pandit in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami has pointed out that in the shape of Lakshmi, the pleasure potency of Krishna, she was formerly very dear to the Lord as Shamsundara Vallabha. The same Shamsundara Vallabha is now present in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes as Gadadhara Pandit. Formerly as Lalita Sakhi, she was also always devoted to Srimati Radharani. Thus, Gadadhara Pandit is simultaneously the incarnation of Srimati Radharani and Lalita Sakhi. In the 12th chapter of this part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a description of the descendants or disciplic succession of Gadadhara Pandit. And in the next text, Krishnadas says, his disciples and grand disciples are his sub-branches. To describe them all would be difficult, but he makes an attempt. Excuse me. He makes an attempt in chapter 12. Okay. There used to be a thing in the app where you could actually find bookmarks and highlights, and now I can't figure out how to do that. So I apologize. I have much more experience navigating analog texts than I do digital texts. So this will be either annoying or amusing to watch as I try to figure out where the heck I am in this. I've got a very long purport here, so I don't even know where I am right now. It must be in chapter 7, because this is a really long purport. Oh dear, how did I get there? 10. Hare Krishna. There's a little bit later in chapter 10, there's a reference to a pastime that we'll look at in Chaitanya Bhagavat. I'm almost there. In text 40, which discusses Mukunda Dutt, another of Lord Chaitanya's schoolmates, Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport. It was by he says it was by his endeavor, by the endeavor of Mukunda Dutt, that Gadadhara Pandit Goswami became a disciple of Pundarik Vidyanidhi, as stated in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhyakanda chapter 7. Okay, so our next bit of fun will be watching me try to switch texts. So, in chapter 7 of the Madhyakanda, we find that Mukunda has suggested to Gadadhara Pandit that there's a wonderful Vaishnava coming, and this is someone you should meet. I think you'll very much enjoy his company. And this is Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So Gadadhara Pandit was extremely sober, very austere, and very devoted to Lord Chaitanya. So we see Mukunda Dutt being carried in on a palanquin, and appearing to be a very materialistic person. And so Vrindavan Das says, his hair is oiled and styled. He's wearing the latest fashions. He's smoking a hookah, sitting on, big silk pillows. He looks like the most materialistic person you could imagine. And so Vrindavan Das Thakur writes, Gadadhar Mahashaya had been renounced from the time of his birth, so he developed some doubts about Vidyanidhi. He is a great Vaishnava. His appearance, with his opulent foodstuffs, opulent dress, opulent hairstyle, completely like that of a materialist. Not only was he dressed to the nines, and it was like those old pictures of the Roman emperors, with the young girls feeding him grapes. There were two people fanning him, and it was a whole scene. So Gadadhar had some doubts. He says Gadadhar had good faith in him after hearing about him, but now that he saw him, that faith was lost. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes, Gadadhar Pandit Goswami considered that remaining totally aloof from material enjoyment and maintaining strict celibacy were religious principles. But on seeing Pundarik Vidyanidhi's items of enjoyment, he thought that Pundarik was devoid of devotion to Vishnu, a gross materialist and a sense enjoyer. When he heard from Mukunda about the exalted position of Pundarik Vidyanidhi, he thought that Pundarik would be renounced from all material enjoyment. But now, on seeing the opposite, his previously acquired faith was diminished. He was a little deflated. He was all excited to see this great devotee recommended by his friend Mukunda. Understanding the heart of Gadadhar, Sri Mukunda happily began to reveal Vidyanidhi's glories. So sometimes we can read each other's minds. Sometimes there are connections between people where we can feel each other's minds, sometimes even feel each other's hearts. I've had this experience with a couple of devotees, and it's quite wonderful and also a little, it can be upsetting when you understand that something's wrong. You can just kind of feel. You don't even, it doesn't even have to be an expression, but there's just something about that person where you see, oh, things aren't exactly right, and you wonder, what can I do to help? By the mercy of Krishna, nothing is unseen or unknown to Gadadhar, for Krishna is the Lord of Maya. Then Mukunda, who sweetly sings the glories of Krishna, began to recite some verses glorifying devotional service. Mukunda Dutt was very well known for his sweet singing. Has anyone ever met my godbrother, Mukunda Dutt? Also known for his very sweet singing. So appropriately named. Such a wonderful devotee. Then Mukunda, who sweetly sings the glories of Krishna, began to recite some verses glorifying devotional service. The witch Putana mercilessly kills children. She tried to kill the Lord with poison, yet the Lord awarded her the position of mother. How can a foolish person not worship such a merciful Lord? And he cited a verse from the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam. This is Uddhava, glorifying Krishna, a very famous verse. Also, this is one of the verses when Shukadeva Goswami left home. Does anybody know how long it took Shukadeva Goswami to leave home after he was born? No time at all. Exactly right. No time at all. He took one look around and said, well, Krishna assured me that I wouldn't fall into Maya, so I came out, but look what's going on here. It's the whole material world. And he immediately took off for the forest to sit down and meditate on, on the Brahman. He was a Brahmavadi from birth, completely self-realized. And Vyasadeva thought, oh dear, when he left, he thought, oh dear, what's going on here? So he sent a couple of his disciples out, disguised as woodmen, into the forest to chant Bhagavatam verses and see if he could disturb Shukadeva's meditation. So he chanted this, Ahobakiyam stanakala kutam, Jigam shayapyad apyasadvi, lebhegatim dhatrir chitam tatonyakam, vada adalyasharanam brajema. Alas, how could I take shelter of anyone more merciful than he who granted the position of mother to a she-demon, although she was unfaithful, and she prepared deadly poison to be sucked from her breast. Putin is a very interesting character. Sometimes we say, just as Vrindavan Das Thakur says, that Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardana. He accepts the devotee's feelings, even if something is done wrong, even if the devotee has some faults, and there's some faults in the devotee's worship or offerings. Krishna accepts the feelings, the intention of the devotee. So sometimes we say that intention is all important, but Putana kind of gives the lie to that, or at least she complicates it. And I like things that complicate matters for us sometimes, because we have to think more carefully about them. Because her intention was to kill Krishna, but she was dressed up like a devotee. Because she was dressed up like a devotee, Krishna accepted the external rather than her intention in this case, and gave her a position of a nursemaid just beyond the borders of Vrindavan. Putana was hankering for the blood of human children, and with that desire she came to kill Krishna. But because she offered her breast to the Lord, she attained the greatest achievement. As soon as Vidyanidhi heard this description of devotional service, he began to weep. The unprecedented flow of tears from his eyes appeared like an incarnation of Ganga Devi. All the symptoms of ecstatic love, like tears, shivering, perspiration, losing consciousness, hairs standing on end, and loud shouting, simultaneously manifest in his body. He roared loudly while exclaiming, "Go on reciting! Go on reciting!" He couldn't remain steady and fell to the ground. He broke all the surrounding paraphernalia by the kicking of his feet. Nothing was spared. What happened to the opulent pan container and the nicely prepared pan? What happened to the water pots that were used for drinking water? Where did the bed fall by the kick of his feet? Out of ecstatic love, he tore apart his opulent clothes with his two hands. What happened to his opulent hair as he rolled on the ground and cried profusely, "Oh, Krishna, oh my Lord, oh Krishna, oh my life and soul, you have made my heart hard like wood or stone." He lamented and cried loudly, "In your present incarnation, I have been deceived." He fell to the ground and rolled about so forcefully that everyone thought, "Have his bones been broken to pieces?" He shivered so vigorously out of ecstatic love that even 10 men could not hold him still. So we're starting to get the idea. After revealing his ecstatic love in this way, for some time in this way, he remained unconscious, lying there in ecstasy. Vidyanidhi was completely immersed in an ocean of bliss. After seeing this, Gadadhar was struck with wonder and somewhat worried. I have disrespected such a great personality. At what an inauspicious time did I come to see him? Gadadhara Pandit embraced Mukunda with great satisfaction and bathed him in tears of love. "O Mukunda, you have acted as my real friend, for you have shown me the great devotee Vidyanidhi Bhattacharya. Is there another Vaishnava like him in the three worlds? In fact, the three worlds have become purified by seeing his devotional service. I was able to avoid a great danger because you were with me." On seeing his materialistic appearance, I considered him to be a materialistic Vaishnava. You understand my mind and revealed the devotional mood of Pundarik. I have committed an offense, so please have him bestow mercy on me so that my offense is nullified. All the devotees on the path of devotional service must have a spiritual master. So far, I do not have an instructor. My desire is to take mantra initiation from him. If I become his disciple, then he will forgive all my offenses that I have committed by disregarding him. And so eventually, Gadadhara Pandit did approach Pundarik Vidyanidhi for mantra diksha. And we understand that Pundarik Vidyanidhi, from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Pundarik Vidyanidhi is Rishabhanuraj, the father of Srimati Radharani. So it's perfectly appropriate that Gadadhara Pandit would take mantra diksha from him. He would take initiation from Pundarik Vidyanidhi. We also know from later in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that when the Lord decided to travel to Vrindavan from Sri Kshetra Jagannath Puri, that that Gadadhara Pandit insisted on coming with him, and so he was following him. But on coming to Sri Kshetra with Lord Chaitanya, Gadadhara Pandit accepted a vow of Kshetra sannyas, which was, he made a sankalpa that he would never leave Sri Kshetra Jagannath Puri. And so Lord Chaitanya admonished him and stopped him on the way and made him go back. Gadadhar was devastated. He was heartbroken at having to do so. So this is why I say he was practically a constant companion. In Navadvip and in Puri, he was certainly a constant companion of Lord Chaitanya's. But there were only a few instances. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as we know, is much more contemporary. Where did it go? Oh, here we go. He appeared in the 19th century in Bengal, and he was a reformer. I've characterized him as a revolutionary. He grew up, his family was quite devastated by a plague in his home village, and he was sent to Kolkata to be educated by some of the elite of the Kolkata society of that time. They're sometimes referred to as the Bhadraloka. These were the Bengali intelligentsia who were influenced by the Western ideas of the British who had colonized India at that time. And so he had the best association and the best education. And he could have been as famous a personality as the Tagores with whom he associated. He was, he was a contemporary. He was associated with Rabindranath Tagore, who was one of the most famous Bengali writers. But at a certain point, he encountered Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and that changed his life. And he went on a search. It wasn't like he could just go down to Balboa Park and find Govardhan or Dwijamani or one of our heroes here and buy a set of Sri Chaitanya Charitamritas. On Facebook, we see the LA heroes. We don't see the heroes themselves. We see the recipients of their mercy with their box of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita or their case of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, or sometimes both. And it's just this wonderful thing to see, selling sets of Srila Prabhupada's books, selling sets of our scriptures on the street. So you couldn't do that then. It was very difficult for Bhaktivinoda Thakur to find his own, to obtain his own copy of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita so he could study it. But he eventually did. And he became a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya. And I wrote an article many years ago, in the late 90s, for our Janmashtami souvenir magazine here in San Diego at the devotees' request. I had given a talk at a Nishtagosti that we had sometime in the late 90s, must have been 99. And it was recorded, and the devotees liked it well enough that they asked me to turn it into an article for the souvenir magazine, which I did. And I think it was used 2 or 3 years. 1 year while I was here, and then after I was gone, 2000, 2001, something like that. And then I revised it, and it's been published a number of times, several places on the internet. So I thought I would share my observations about Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The article is called Considering Srila Prabhupada's Mercy. And this Ishtagosti had a particular focus, and I decided that my approach, my contribution would be to take a quick look at what was special about Srila Prabhupada, what's unique about Srila Prabhupada. So I talked about how Lord Chaitanya revolutionized Vaishnavism. He took Krishna consciousness into the streets when he inaugurated, maybe I should do it this way, easier for Grandpa to read here. When he inaugurated the congregational chanting of the Lord's holy names and deputed bands of devotees to widely preach the glories of Sankirtan and devotional service, he himself traveled all over India preaching Krishna consciousness. He specifically deputed Lord Nityananda to preach in Bengal. Whereas Lord Chaitanya's direct followers came from higher social classes, Lord Nityananda made absolutely no distinction. He approached anyone and everyone, and I could have added, anywhere and everywhere, as demonstrated in his pastime with Jagai and Madhai, and implored them to take up devotional service to Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. Actually, Lord Chaitanya instructed Lord Nityananda to preach the glories of Lord Krishna, but Lord Nityananda, being a bit of a independent fellow in some ways, defied him and preached the glories of Lord Chaitanya. In the mid-19th century, Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur saw that Lord Chaitanya's teachings had become distorted in several ways and fallen into disrepute. He conceived a dynamic plan to spread the glories of devotional service to everyone around the world. Part of his program was a modern approach to presenting Krishna consciousness. He presented the philosophy of Srimad Bhagavatam in a way that even those who were influenced by modern Western philosophies, both in India and abroad, could appreciate it. Essential to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's revolutionary view was the understanding that Lord Chaitanya was not exaggerating when he said that his name would be sung in every town and village around the world. Bhaktivinoda wrote in his monthly journal, Sajjanatoshini, Srimad Mahaprabhu did not descend with his associates to deliver a certain number of human beings in the land of India. Back then, as far as I understand, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya were generally known by folks who lived in villages in Bengal and Orissa and in the Vrindavan area in what's now Uttar Pradesh. But especially at this time in the cities, among the so-called educated people, they had fallen into disrepute because of the influence of different kinds of sahajiyas and just superstitions that kind of descended on the people because of the influence of the Westerners like Max Muller and folks like that. He quoted a verse from Chaitanya Bhagavat in which the Lord predicted, "My name will be preached in all the countries and towns that exist throughout the world." Bhaktivinoda Thakur then expressed his heart's desire. There are many kinds of religion in the world, and among all of them, the highest development of religion is the congregational chanting of the Supreme Lord's divine names. Of this there is no doubt. Alas, when will that day come when greatly fortunate souls in countries such as England, France, Russia, Prussia, and America will take up banners, kettle drums, mridangas, and karatals, and thus cause the ecstatic waves of Harinam Kirtan and the singing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's holy name to rise in the streets of their towns and cities. Oh, when will that day come when pure and transcendental Vaishnava Prema will be the only religion of all souls, and all tiny sectarian religions will meet in the unlimited and universal religion of Vaishnavism as rivers merge into the ocean. Oh, when will that day come? And then I continue his plan for propagating Krishna consciousness, included reviving a scientific Daivi Varnashram system to make society more conducive to spiritual culture. And he wrote a letter to that effect, which I just didn't have time to track down. If I'm at home in my little hut in New Navadweep, I've got all the stuff that I have on my iPad, and then all the bunch of stuff that I can't get on the iPad because it doesn't exist digitally yet. And so I've got all kinds of resources that I can pull from. But he wrote a letter to his son and disciple, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, instructing him to teach like this. He wrote prolifically, I think over 100 books that included, he wrote prolifically and translated quite prolifically from Bengali and Sanskrit to English. And the connection with Gadadhara Pandit is that his personal deities are Sri Sri Gaura Gadadhar. And you can see them if you go to Godrumadweep in Mayapur. When I was in Mayapur this last time, I was only there for 10 days, and I was pretty busy most of the time, and I did not even get to do half of the things outside that I wanted to. I had restricted myself to a very short visit that was actually recommended by Badri Narayan Maharaj, attending the ILS, and I stayed for a couple of days of the Kirtan Mela afterwards, because I just really wanted that, and I was really happy that I did. But I didn't get to go Drumadweep. I didn't get to Sri Surabhi Kunj, Swananda Sukara Kunj, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's home there, as I had visited, which I had visited in when I previously was in Mayapur in 1980. But it's quite a wonderful experience to visit that and to take darshan of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's personal deities. He wrote a Vaishnava novel, which I don't think I'm going to have time to share, because there's something that I do want to share. He also wrote books of songs glorifying Bhakti and glorifying Lord Chaitanya, glorifying different practices of Bhakti. And one of those little books is a collection of songs called Sharanagati, which are songs exploring the glories of this one anga of sadhana bhakti, taking shelter of the Lord. And at the end of that book, there's a song that I'm still working. I have a writing project that involves Sharanagati. That's going to be quite consuming, and Krishna willing, need to maintain my health so that I can do that. But at the end of his Sharanagati collection is a Nama Mahatmya, a song glorifying the holy name, which is really amazing. So I'm going to share that. I want to use my remaining time to share that. Do I share the Bengali? No. Clock is ticking. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, it's really wonderful. It's a very familiar meter that we can sing to, and if I were bolder and had organized my time better, I would do a very pale imitation of Gaur Govinda Maharaj and just launch into this apparently spontaneously. He says, "What power does the name of Krishna possess? My heart constantly burns in the fire of worldly desires, just like a desert scorched by the rays of the sun. The holy name, entering the core of my heart through the holes of my ears, showers unparalleled nectar upon my soul. The holy name speaks from within my heart, moves onto the tip of my tongue, constantly dances on it in the form of transcendental sound. My throat becomes choked up. My body shivers again and again, and my feet cannot remain still." So this is a progressive experience of the holy name. It begins by it's entering his ears, going straight to his heart, and then throwing him into ecstatic symptoms. What he's describing is the sattvika bhavas that we see in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. "Rivers of tears flow from my eyes. Perspiration completely soaks my body. All my skin thrills with rapture. My hairs stand on end and my complexion turns pale and discolored. My mind grows faint. I begin to experience devastation, and my entire body is shattered in a flood of ecstatic emotions. While causing such an ecstatic disturbance, the holy name showers liquid nectar on my heart and drowns me in the ocean of divine love of Godhead. He does not allow me to understand anything, for he has made me truly mad by having stolen away my mind and all my resources. Such is the behavior of him in whom I have taken shelter. I'm not capable of describing this. The holy name of Krishna is independent and thus acts on his own sweet will, and in whatever way he becomes happy, that is also my way of happiness." And then it gets really interesting. The progress, now we're in overdrive. "The holy name is the bud of the flower of divine love." If you have your seatbelts, if you don't have your seatbelts buckled, please do so now. We'll have the attendants going up and down the aisles to make sure, because things are going to get a little turbulent here. "The holy name is the bud of the flower of divine love, and is the very abode of astonishing mellows. Such is the power he manifests that when his holy name starts to blossom a little further, it then reveals his own divine form and qualities. Thus my heart is abducted and taken directly to Krishna." But there's more. "Blossoming fully, the flower of the holy name takes me to Vraja, and reveals to me his own love dalliance. That this name gives to me my own eternal spiritual body, keeps me right by Krishna's side, and completely destroys everything related to this mortal frame of mine. So this all happens by the mercy of the holy name. Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself had taken what had been seen for a while as the traditional form of initiation, including a revelation of his eternal spiritual form in Radha and Krishna's pastimes, which he accepted and never repudiated. But he's asserting here that this is all available from the holy name. And then the last verse. The name of Krishna is I might have time to read the Bengali. Krishna nama chintamani akila raserakani nitya mukta siddha rasamoy namer balai jatat sabaloyi hoy hata tabi moda sukherudoy. The holy name of Krishna is a transcendental touchstone, a mine of all devotional mellows. It is eternally liberated, the embodiment of pure rasa. When all impediments to the pure chanting of the holy name are taken away and destroyed, then my happiness will know its true awakening. So here he paraphrases that famous verse, Namachintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, etc. So this is a little bit of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Gadadhara Pandit's glories. We owe everything to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's by his inspiration that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur conducted his preaching campaign throughout India, and by his inspiration that our Srila Prabhupada made the insanely bold step in the eyes of all his contemporaries of, as he's turning 70, getting on a freighter and coming to America with no money and no contacts, practically speaking. No idea what he was going to encounter, and pushing on in his old age, inspiring folks getting close to 30 like Dravida and me, and Badrinarayan Maharaj, to give our all, to keep trying to give our all, giving whatever we have to help those who are spreading the glories of the holy names of Krishna. I don't think we're going to have, we have a minute if anybody has a quick comment to make. We can try.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't hear all I heard was the last 5 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah, I wish I'm going to catch it on YouTube. I'm definitely going to catch it. I can see your line.
Yeah, this was Radha Giridhari's mercy that I got to an opportunity to explore a little bit of this, and then I had to weed through all the. I mean, it was quite an anxious, especially this morning, was quite anxious for me. So, thank you all so very much, those of you here and those out in interwebs land. Sri Gadadhara Pandit Gosai Ki Jai, Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.